Bridlington, a sleepy holiday resort much like any other, based in East Yorkshire. It is home to the historic Sowerby Hall and its beautiful gardens, the Bayside Pleasure Park, the Bempton Cliffs Nature Reserve, and many other fine attractions for tourists and locals alike. But Bridlington is also the home to something else. A family tragedy. It is the tale of a man so violent and twisted that he would beat his wife and baby in broad daylight in front of holiday makers every day, several times a day. So brazen he was that he would beat animals, steal food, assault police officers, and in one particularly grim incident, he would feed his own infant child into a sausage machine. Confronted by the hangman and even the Prince of Darkness, this foul, aggressive character, ugly inside and out, a shrill-voiced, poorly dressed, lazy thug. And also a wonderful seaside performance for children. Yay, wife-beating murder puppets. Yes, this week's game is Punch and Judy. Who wouldn't want a Punch and Judy game? It's okay, guys. We don't want games based on things we like. Give us a Punch and Judy tape cassette. I'll put it right next to the Rupert the Bear games in that pile of unplayed Grandad properties that kids dislike intensely. That's the way to do it. So what is this nonsense all about, and what is it doing on my channel? Get off with you. Punch and Judy is a puppet performance act most associated with English seaside culture. A single puppeteer, known in Victorian times as the Professor, squats inside a square booth and performs an interactive act segmented into short scenes. The kazoo-style vocals of Punch are performed using a voice organ known as a swazzle. A swazzle. There, you've learned something there, if nothing else. Punch and Judy has its roots in 16th century Italian performance, with Punch himself derived from the manifestation of the Lord of Misrule, that being Pulcinella. It is believed that the puppetry was first performed in the UK in Covent Garden by Italian showman Pietro Gimondi in the ancient year of 1662. Storylines in performances change quite a lot dependent on the performer, as there's no real set story for this chaos. Key plot points tend to revolve around Judy asking the petulant Mr. Punch to look after their nameless baby. Mr. Punch, either intentionally or negligently, will mistreat the child in a physical manner. This will incur the wrath of his missus, particularly understandable when in one of the routines Punch either beats or feeds the infant into a sausage machine. Violence ensues, the police get involved. So far, so Council Estate set police documentary, apart from the sausage machine, hopefully. Speaking of sausages, when they get involved, that will attract the attention of a starved crocodile, which we, the audience, are told to warn Mr. Punch about. They may also introduce other characters like Joey the Clown, a ghost, a doctor, a dog called Toby, a hangman called Jack Ketch, and finally, the devil. It depends on the story being told, but you can be rest assured that in all of them, Punch is an irredeemable shite. As you might expect, Punch and Judy, a staple of the British seaside for centuries, has in recent years become a little bit controversial due to changing social attitudes. But this was in the 90s, when people used words like political correctness rather than the more punchy but hard to define woke. I have vague recollections of watching it as a child, but I can tell you now I won't be taking my son to see it, not because I'm offended by it, but because it's shite. I don't really care how violent it is. I think it's quite comical how violent it is. I'm not offended by it. You know what? Let's lean into it fully. Let's have Neil by Mouth, the Ray Winstone film, but with puppets to entertain children with. Why not? Let's really sort of lean into it. No, my problem is that certain traditions just don't deserve to exist anymore because they're boring. You know, I watch plenty of boring puppet things. Doobie Duck's Disco Bus and that Flat Eric advert. Let's have a Flat Eric show. Dead people's baggage. Get rid of it. Which makes the existence of a Punch and Judy game, even as long ago as 1989, utterly baffling to me. Surely no one was clamouring to play a computer game based on Punch and Judy on their Amstrad, their Commodore 64, their MSX or their ZX Spectrum. Yet Alternative Software, a company extremely familiar to this channel, and indeed a company that's put out a sausage string if you like, of licenses, got Clockwise Software Developments to program a Punch and Judy game for release at a budget price. I mean, 4 Centuries is definitely public domain at this stage. That's a free games license known to thousands of kids whose grands punish them with domestic violence for entertainment, while they'd rather be building sandcastles or tormenting seagulls or playing Final Fight in the local arcade. It is a game license built on resentment. Brilliant. So what's the story in this game? Well, the narcissistic turd is keen to show his wife beating Super Show to the locals of Bridlington, only some git has broken up his tent and strewn it all around town. Punch must take to his clown shoes and retrieve these parts and reassemble them at the beachfront. These are randomly placed, and so they won't be in the same place when you fancy another traipse around the Yorkshire coastline. This task, which takes up most of the game time, finds you hampered by the local police constable, who will arrest you possibly for the numerous marital assaults that you carry out on your nearest and dearest. This will take a mighty chunk away from your time, which is represented by the tide coming in at the bottom of the screen. It can also be drained by exposure to sausage-hungry crocodiles, which patrol the shops and the alleyways, but can be distracted with a good stringed length in its maw. When your erection is up standing proud for all, and by that of course I mean the tent, you need to round up your cast, who can be press-ganged into this charade with a good twat around the face with a stick. Do it before the tide's in, and your child abuse violence can be brought to the holidaying masses. And that's it really, that's the game. It reminds me a lot of the Gilbert Escape from Drill game I covered on the channel a few years back, sharing a very similar structure and graphical style. And that is with good reason, seeing as Clockwise was responsible for some of the conversions of the Gilbert game. It's a very simple game in its structure. Wander through a maze, find things, avoid enemies, and assemble your found things in one location. It's as budget game as budget games get. There's nothing spectacular to be found here at all, but despite its mid-nature, there is a certain degree of charm about it. Graphically, it's pretty good for a low-priced effort regardless of its format. But what I like most about Punch and Judy is its setting. You see, it's nailed that crap British 80s seaside location down pat. There's chip shops, there's ice cream sellers, there's shops selling sweets, retailers selling seaside tat like spades and beach balls, a couple of arcades. It's great in that regard. All it's missing is a sobbing child getting dive-bombed by seagulls for donuts. And there's a good reason for this too. You see, developers Clockwise were based in the game's setting of Bridlington, and creators Gary Wood and Dean Hickenbottom would wander around the streets and find locations that would work well in the game. So it's nice to see, despite the crapness of the license, that Clockwise did put a bit of personal care into this game. I mean, the game's depressingly mediocre, but they got the feel just right. That's the way to do it. Just like me, the games reviewers of the time were unimpressed by the Punch and Judy license, so they don't appear to have reviewed it in any of the magazines of that time, at least not from what I can see. No Amstrad reviews, no Commodore 64 reviews, no Spectrum reviews, nothing. So instead, here is a review from a seagull. I think he agrees with me. Well, there we are then, Punch and Judy. That's that video in the bag. What's next? Well, the next game is no pushover. Except it is. It is pushover. Oh, and if you like Punch and Judy, that's okay. It's your own thing. I might question it a bit, but, that's up to you. Anyway, like, subscribe, and K, thanks, bye.